Roswell, 1947. A desert crash ignited the world's greatest alien mystery, but its real story is about how we build legends. The impact rippled far beyond the wreckage, shaping lives and beliefs for generations. In the early days of July 1947, a fierce summer thunderstorm rolled across the vast, arid plains of Lincoln County, New Mexico, illuminating the high desert with jagged streaks of lightning. The next morning, a quiet, unassuming ranch foreman named William Mac Brazel rode out on horseback to check on his sheep and inspect the remote pastures for property damage. As he navigated a deep valley roughly 30 miles north of Roswell, his horse suddenly balked at an unusual sight scattered across the rugged terrain. Spread across a strip of land nearly 3/4 of a mile long was a vast field of highly unusual wreckage, glinting brightly under the harsh desert sun. There were no signs of a traditional engine, no crater indicating a massive impact, and absolutely no traces of fuel, oil, or conventional mechanical components anywhere on the ground. Instead, the area was heavily littered with thin, lightweight strips of a material that closely resembled metallic foil, alongside tough, brownish chunks of paper-like substance. Strung between these fragments were long, slender beams made of a lightweight wood-like material, some of which had been shattered by the unknown impact. Brazel, entirely accustomed to finding ordinary weather instruments or lost target balloons from nearby military installations, recognized that this particular debris field was far larger and more extensive than anything he had encountered before. Lacking any modern means of communication on the isolated ranch, he gathered a few small samples of the wreckage, loaded them onto his horse, and returned to his homestead. He had no inkling that his routine morning inspection had just uncovered the physical catalyst for what would eventually become the most fiercely debated, mythologized, and enduring mystery in the history of modern aviation. William Mac Brazel was a practical, hard-working cattleman who had spent his entire life operating in the isolated, unforgiving elements of the American Southwest. He was not a man given to wild flights of imagination or sensational storytelling, and his primary concern remained the daily welfare of the livestock under his care. For several days after his initial discovery, the strange debris sat largely undisturbed inside a remote livestock shed on the Foster Ranch, while Brazel focused on his demanding daily chores. However, on Sunday, July 6, 1947, he made the long, dusty journey into the town of Roswell to sell wool and visit local acquaintances. While there, he stopped by the office of Chavez County Sheriff George Wilcox, casually presenting a small bundle of the unidentifiable materials he had collected from the pasture. Wilcox, intrigued by the unusual properties of the lightweight fragments and mindful of recent national news reports, immediately contacted the nearby Roswell Army Airfield. The base was home to the elite 509th Bomb Group, the only military unit in the entire world capable of delivering atomic weapons, making its personnel hypersensitive to any potential security breaches. The base commander, Colonel William Blanchard, took the report seriously and immediately dispatched 2 highly trained men to investigate the claim. These men were Captain Sheridan Cavett of the Counterintelligence Corps and Major Jesse Marcel, the base's chief intelligence officer. The 2 officers accompanied Brazel back to the remote ranch site, spending the night sleeping in a primitive line shack before heading out at dawn to inspect the debris field firsthand. Together, they packed the trunks of their military vehicles with the strange wreckage, unaware that their actions would spark a global media firestorm within 24 hours. To fully comprehend why the military reacted with such unprecedented urgency to Mac Brazel's discovery, one must look at the unique psychological climate gripping the United States during the summer of 1947. Just a few weeks prior, on June 24, a private pilot named Kenneth Arnold was flying near Mount Rainier in Washington state when he spotted 9 brilliant, unidentifiable objects flying in a tight, rapid formation. Arnold described the objects' peculiar, skipping motion to reporters as being like a saucer skipping across water, a description that the mainstream press immediately seized upon, coining the immortal phrase, flying saucer. Within days, a wave of intense mass hysteria swept across the nation, with hundreds of citizens reporting sightings of mysterious, disc-shaped objects flying through the skies of nearly every state. The dawning of the Cold War had created a pervasive undercurrent of anxiety, with the public and the military deeply concerned that the Soviet Union had developed highly advanced, stealthy aerial technology capable of infiltrating American airspace completely undetected. The sky had suddenly become a source of profound mystery and potential threat, and radar operators were on constant alert for any unknown anomalies. The military found itself under immense public pressure to explain these baffling aerial phenomena, yet they possessed very little actionable intelligence or physical evidence. When word reached Colonel Blanchard at the Roswell base that a strange, metallic debris field had been located in the New Mexico desert, it seemed to represent the first tangible, physical breakthrough in a rapidly escalating national security crisis, prompting an immediate, dramatic executive decision. The physical characteristics of the debris recovered from the Foster Ranch would eventually form the absolute core of the decades-long debate, with later witness accounts diverging sharply from initial official reports. Major Jesse Marcel, upon returning to his home in Roswell late on the night of July 7, woke his wife and young son, Jesse Jr., to show them the extraordinary materials packed into his vehicle. Decades later, both Jesse Marcel Sr. and his son would consistently describe materials that seemed completely alien to the industrial technology available in post-war America. They recalled seeing large quantities of a super-thin, parchment-like foil that was incredibly lightweight, yet possessed such a miraculous strength that it could not be torn, cut, or creased, even when struck heavily with a hammer. There were also numerous small, hollow structural beams that resembled balsa wood in weight, but were completely impervious to fire and could not be snapped or bent by human hands. Most intriguingly, witnesses later claimed that these lightweight beams featured strange, reddish-purple geometric symbols printed along their inner surfaces, which some observers likened to ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics or abstract alien writing. However, the contemporary military inventory sheets and initial official field notes described the wreckage in far more mundane, terrestrial terms. These early documents recorded the recovery of large amounts of highly reflective tinfoil, tough rubber strips, heavy wood-grained fiber sticks, and fragments of a dark, paper-like substance. This stark, glaring contradiction between the early, unadorned official records and the detailed, fantastic memories shared by witnesses decades later would become the primary battleground where skeptics and ufologists would clash for the next 50 years. On the morning of Tuesday, July 8, 1947, Colonel William Blanchard made a decision that would forever cement the Roswell name into the annals of global mystery. Without obtaining direct clearance from higher-ranking commanders at the Pentagon or 8th Air Force Headquarters, he ordered the base's young public information officer, Lieutenant Walter Oates, to issue an official press release to the public. Oates delivered the short typed statement to local radio stations and regional newspapers, and its contents sent an immediate shockwave through the global media network. The press release boldly announced that the intelligence office of the 509th Bomb Group had successfully recovered a flying disc from a local ranch in New Mexico, thanks to the cooperation of a local cattleman and the Chavez County Sheriff's Office. Within minutes, the international telegraph lines and telephone networks were completely overwhelmed as journalists from London, New York, and Chicago frantically tried to contact the remote desert military base. The explosive news story dominated the front pages of evening newspapers across the nation, with the iconic Roswell Daily Record printing the massive, bold banner headline, "RAAF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region." For a few brief, surreal hours, the official position of the United States military was that they had secured physical proof of a non-terrestrial or highly advanced technological craft. The public watched in absolute awe and trepidation, believing that the ultimate question regarding life beyond Earth had finally been answered by the highest authorities, creating a moment of pure, unadulterated sensation that would never be forgotten. The sensational narrative of a captured flying saucer lasted less than half a day before the high command of the United States military initiated a total, dramatic reversal of the story. The explosive press release had deeply alarmed Brigadier General Roger Ramey, commander of the 8th Air Force at Fort Worth Army Air Field in Texas, who possessed a broader understanding of classified federal operations. Ramey immediately seized control of the situation, ordering Major Jesse Marcel to fly the recovered debris directly to Fort Worth via a military transport plane for an urgent, high-level inspection. By late afternoon, a secondary press release was issued to the wire services, completely retracting Colonel Blanchard's initial statement and dismissively correcting the record. The new official explanation asserted that the elite intelligence officers at Roswell had committed a highly embarrassing, catastrophic error, mistaking the common remnants of an ordinary weather balloon for a flying disc. The military explained that the debris was merely a combination of a rubber balloon and a metallic radar target used to track high-altitude wind currents, a completely routine piece of technology. The global media network, which had been in a state of wild frenzy, reversed direction almost instantly, with journalists quickly printing the new, mundane explanation under headlines dismissing the incident as a false alarm. The sense of profound cosmic discovery vanished as quickly as it had arrived, replaced by public amusement at the military's apparent bureaucratic incompetence, and the world's attention moved on to other news. To solidify the weather balloon explanation and pacify the inquisitive press corps, General Roger Ramey invited journalists into his personal office at Fort Worth for an unprecedented, live photographic demonstration. Major Jesse Marcel was ordered to stand in the room alongside the recovered wreckage, which had been unceremoniously dumped onto a large piece of brown wrapping paper covering the office floor. The journalists photographed Marcel kneeling beside the tattered remnants, his face appearing visibly strained and somber under the bright flashes of the news cameras. The objects on display were clearly unadulterated, mundane terrestrial components, torn sheets of metallic foil, broken wood strips, and fragments of a dark, rubbery material that looked exactly like a destroyed weather apparatus. General Ramey also brought in a weather officer, Warrant Officer Irving Newton, who confidently identified the wreckage as a standard Ravensond radar target, used routinely by military bases across the country. The resulting photographs were published in newspapers nationwide the following morning, effectively serving as the absolute final nail in the coffin for the Roswell flying saucer story in 1947. Major Marcel, bound by strict military discipline and the chains of command, remained silent, offering no public contradiction to his superior officers' public statements. The physical evidence on the floor seemed completely undeniable to the reporters present, who viewed the entire episode as a humorous, closed chapter of post-war military confusion, completely unaware of the complex secrets that lay hidden behind the scenes. Following the high-profile press conference in Fort Worth, a profound, unbroken silence settled over the Roswell incident, lasting for over 3 decades. The case completely vanished from public consciousness, remaining unmentioned in books, magazine articles, or military histories throughout the 1950s, 1960s, and most of the 1970s. Mac Brazel returned to his remote ranching life, reportedly bound by a strict oath of military secrecy, and refused to discuss the details of his discovery with journalists or researchers until his death. The personnel of the Roswell Army Air Field were systematically reassigned to other bases across the globe, and the physical records of the event were filed away into deep government archives, gathering dust. During this long period of absolute silence, the broader UFO phenomenon continued to evolve independently, with the term Area 51 and various accounts of alien encounters taking root in American pop culture. Yet, through it all, the town of Roswell remained a quiet, ordinary farming and ranching community, entirely unaffected by the brief brush with international fame it had experienced during that hot summer week in 1947. The physical wreckage shown to reporters was widely assumed to have been destroyed or discarded as standard military refuse, and the entire incident was viewed by historians as a minor, eccentric footnote in the history of the early Cold War era, destined to be forgotten by the turning of the generations. The grand resurrection of the Roswell mystery began unexpectedly in the late 1970s, thanks to the tireless, investigative efforts of a nuclear physicist and ufologist named Stanton Friedman. While visiting a television station in Louisiana in 1978, Friedman was casually advised to contact an elderly, retired military officer who lived nearby and claimed to have handled real pieces of a flying saucer. That retired officer was Jesse Marcel, the former intelligence chief who had spent 30 years living quietly in civilian life, away from the spotlight of his military career. In a series of recorded interviews with Friedman, Marcel dropped a series of bombshell claims that completely shattered the long-standing weather balloon explanation of 1947. He asserted that the material he had recovered from the New Mexico desert was absolutely not a weather balloon, nor was it any object manufactured by human hands. Marcel claimed that the wreckage displayed to the press in General Ramey's office was a completely fraudulent, staged substitute, deliberately switched by high command to deceive the public while the real material was flown to hidden military laboratories. Friedman, electrified by this direct testimony from the primary military witness, initiated a massive, decade-long archival investigation, tracking down dozens of other aging witnesses, family members, and retired base personnel. The long-forgotten cold case was suddenly thrust back into the mainstream media spotlight, launching a massive wave of best-selling books, television documentaries, and intense public debate that permanently transformed Roswell from a forgotten incident into a global phenomenon. As Major Jesse Marcel's late-life testimony became the foundational pillar for the revived Roswell conspiracy narrative, historians and researchers began to analyze his statements with a critical, rigorous eye. Marcel appeared on national television programs, speaking with an undeniable sincerity and conviction that resonated deeply with millions of viewers who had grown increasingly distrustful of government assertions. He detailed how he had tried to burn a piece of the recovered foil with a lighter, only to find the material completely unaffected by the heat, and how it would instantly unfold itself when crumpled into a ball. However, critical researchers also noted that Marcel's memories had been subject to over 30 years of absolute isolation, media influence, and the natural distortion that affects human recollection over time. Some of his claims regarding his personal military record and educational background were found to be slightly exaggerated when cross-referenced against his official declassified military personnel files. Skeptics pointed out that Marcel had been deeply humiliated by the 1947 public retraction, which had effectively painted him as an incompetent officer who couldn't identify a common weather device, providing a powerful psychological motive to vindicate his professional reputation in his later years. Despite these internal contradictions, Marcel's account remained incredibly compelling to the public, serving as the definitive catalyst that transformed a simple debris recovery case into a sprawling, multi-layered narrative of a massive government cover-up spanning generations. Throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, the Roswell narrative began to expand at an exponential rate, incorporating increasingly fantastic details that were completely absent from the initial 1947 records. Authors and researchers began publishing accounts of secondary crash sites located deeper within the New Mexico wilderness, far from Mac Brazel's original debris field on the Foster Ranch. These new accounts claimed that a secondary, largely intact disc-shaped craft had been discovered by civilian archaeologists and military recovery teams, perched on the edge of a rocky cliffside. Most sensationally, these expanded narratives introduced the concept of non-terrestrial biological entities, with witnesses claiming that the military had recovered several small, hairless alien bodies from the wreckage. These entities were described as having large, hairless heads, oversized black eyes, and thin, fragile limbs, matching the popular cultural archetype of the gray alien. Stories emerged of local morticians receiving frantic phone calls from the Roswell base inquiring about the availability of small, hermetically sealed child-sized coffins, and of nurses who claimed to have seen strange autopsies performed in secret base hospitals. Ufologists integrated these disparate, often contradictory accounts into a singular, sprawling grand conspiracy, asserting that the government had not only hidden alien technology but had also secreted away physical proof of extraterrestrial life itself into subterranean military vaults. The escalating commercialization and sensationalism surrounding the Roswell myth reached its absolute peak in 1995 with the release of the infamous Alien Autopsy film. Marketed globally by a British television producer named Ray Santilli, the grainy, black-and-white footage purported to show military pathologists in protective suits dissecting a deceased, hairless alien being recovered from the Roswell crash. The film was broadcast in primetime specials across dozens of nations, drawing tens of millions of viewers and sparking an intense, brief international scientific debate. True crime researchers, special effects artists, and veteran ufologists quickly exposed the footage as a complete, calculated hoax, noting numerous historical anachronisms, anatomical inconsistencies, and obvious camera deceptions throughout the film. Years later, Santilli formally confessed that the footage was a complete fabrication, filmed in a London apartment using a dummy constructed by a local sculptor and packed with animal organs obtained from a local butcher. This massive deception dealt a severe, devastating blow to the professional credibility of the broader Roswell investigation, demonstrating how easily the public's deep fascination could be exploited for massive financial profit. It served as a stark, sobering warning to researchers that the line between genuine historical investigation and lucrative pop culture mythology had become completely blurred, requiring an intense skepticism when evaluating any new claims regarding the incident. As the Roswell legend grew to encompass hundreds of alleged witnesses, serious historical researchers began to confront the profound fragility of human memory when separated by decades of distance. Many of the most sensational claims regarding alien bodies and secret military threats were found to originate from individuals who were not direct, first-hand observers of the event. Instead, these stories were often second- or third-hand accounts, passed down through family rumors, neighborhood folklore, or heavily influenced by leading questions from biased researchers. Over the years, aging individuals eager to secure a place in history began to alter their stories, introducing increasingly dramatic details to their accounts with each subsequent interview. Documents put forward to support the conspiracy theory, such as the famous Majestic 12 papers which purported to prove a secret committee formed by President Truman to manage the alien cover-up, were definitively exposed by the FBI as complete, sophisticated fabrications. Even well-meaning witnesses were found to have inadvertently conflated separate, distinct historical events that occurred at nearby military bases over a 10-year period, merging them into a single, dramatic memory of July 1947. This complex psychological phenomenon proved that while witness testimony is incredibly compelling, it cannot stand alone as objective historical fact without the firm, unyielding support of contemporary documentation, physical evidence, and verifiable records from the era. The true, documented historical explanation for the extreme military secrecy surrounding the Roswell debris field finally emerged in 1994, stripped of all extraterrestrial mythology but deeply rooted in the cold realities of the early Cold War. Following an intensive congressional inquiry, the United States government declassified a highly sensitive, top-secret military operation known as Project Mogul, which had been conducted in the New Mexico desert during the summer of 1947. Developed by NYU scientists and military engineers, Project Mogul utilized massive, sprawling trains of high-altitude balloons equipped with highly sensitive acoustic microphones. The explicit, critical purpose of these secret balloon arrays was to float high within the Earth's upper atmosphere to detect the low-frequency sound waves generated by potential Soviet nuclear test explosions. This project was viewed by the Pentagon as a matter of supreme national survival, as the United States was desperately trying to monitor when the Soviet Union would successfully develop its own atomic weapon. On June 4, 1947, a complex Mogul balloon array, known as Flight 4, was launched from the nearby Alamogordo Army Airfield but quickly vanished from tracking radar, drifting toward Lincoln County. This specific balloon train utilized unusual radar targets manufactured by a New York toy company, which were constructed using specialized laminated paper, reflective foil, and balsa wood sticks secured with a distinct, reddish-purple pattern of adhesive tape. When Flight 4 crashed onto the Foster Ranch, its extensive, scattered remnants created the exact debris field that Mac Brazel discovered a few weeks later, explaining the physical anomaly without requiring an alien origin. In the early 1990s, the public pressure surrounding the Roswell incident reached such an intense, sustained level that New Mexico Congressman Stephen Schiff formally requested a comprehensive federal investigation into the matter. Schiff tasked the General Accounting Office, the nonpartisan investigative arm of Congress, with conducting an exhaustive, unrestricted audit of all military and intelligence archives to locate any hidden records regarding the debris recovery. The resulting GAO inquiry, published in 1995, involved searching through millions of pages of declassified documents maintained by the Pentagon, the FBI, the CIA, and the National Archives. The investigators reported that they found absolutely no evidence of a covert government project involving extraterrestrial technology, alien bodies, or non-terrestrial spacecraft. However, the report did uncover a frustrating anomaly that fueled further suspicion among conspiracy theorists. All official outgoing radio messages and daily administrative files generated by the Roswell Army Airfield for the summer of 1947 had been systematically destroyed decades prior without proper authorization. While the military explained this destruction as a routine administrative file purging process common to the post-war era, the missing records left a permanent void in the historical timeline. The GAO report successfully validated the Project Mogul explanation as the most probable cause for the initial debris field, providing a solid, documented historical framework that grounded the mystery in the real-world espionage battles of the early Cold War. To address the lingering, highly emotional rumors regarding the recovery of small alien bodies from the New Mexico desert, the United States Air Force issued a definitive, secondary report in 1997 titled The Roswell Report. Case closed. This comprehensive document analyzed how later witness accounts had inadvertently conflated separate, highly classified military experiments that took place across the state during the 1950s. Investigators proved that beginning in 1953, the military conducted Project High Dive, which involved dropping lifelike, anthropomorphic crash test dummies from high-altitude balloons to test advanced parachute systems for pilots. These military dummies were roughly the size of an average human, constructed with a pale, rubbery skin, and lacked hair or distinct facial features, matching the exact physical descriptions of the alleged alien bodies shared by witnesses decades later. When these experimental dummies crashed into the desert floor, military recovery teams in olive-drab vehicles would rapidly sweep the area, cordoning off the site to secure the expensive scientific equipment. The Air Force report demonstrated that elderly witnesses, interviewed 30 or 40 years after the fact, had psychologically merged the memories of these 1950s dummy recoveries with the original 1947 weather balloon incident. While this logical explanation satisfied mainstream historians and scientific skeptics, it was met with fierce derision by devoted ufologists, who viewed the dummy narrative as a convoluted, desperate cover-up designed to obscure the truth. Despite the publication of exhaustive government reports and the solid evidence supporting the Project Mogul explanation, the town of Roswell chose to embrace its extraordinary myth, transforming itself into the undisputed global capital of UFO culture. In the 1990s, local business leaders and city officials realized that the public's enduring fascination with the incident represented an unprecedented tourism goldmine. The city established the International UFO Museum and Research Center inside an old, historic movie theater, attracting hundreds of thousands of international visitors every year. Main street lampposts were redesigned to feature glowing, almond-shaped alien eyes, and local businesses from restaurants to car dealerships adopted playful, extraterrestrial themes. Every July, on the anniversary of the crash, the town hosts a massive UFO festival, drawing costumed enthusiasts, serious researchers, and curious families from across the globe into the remote desert community. The legend of Roswell had effectively outgrown its humble historical origins, evolving into a highly lucrative, self-sustaining cultural phenomenon that defines the modern identity of the region. The line between historical reality and playful folklore has been entirely erased, proving that a powerful, evocative myth can be far more valuable, enduring, and compelling to the human imagination than the dry, unadorned facts of a Cold War military experiment. When we peel away the accumulated layers of pop culture folklore, sensational hoaxes, and late-life exaggerations, the core reality of the Roswell incident remains a powerful case study in the birth of modern mythology. We know with complete historical certainty that a massive field of lightweight debris was discovered by Mac Brazel in July 1947, and that the Roswell base issued an incredibly reckless, unauthorized press release that captured the world's imagination. We know that the military rapidly initiated a cover-up, not to hide an extraterrestrial craft, but to protect the absolute secrecy of Project Mogul, a critical nuclear surveillance operation targeting the Soviet Union. The enduring tragedy of Roswell is that the genuine, fascinating historical reality of Cold War espionage was completely eclipsed by a sprawling myth of alien visitation. Yet, the mystery never truly dies because it taps into a deep, pervasive public distrust of government institutions born during the post-war era, leaving an open space where imagination can thrive. As the sun sets across the vast, lonely plains of Lincoln County, casting long shadows across the dry earth where Mac Brazel once rode, the desert keeps its silence. Whether you view Roswell as a verified account of a terrestrial secret or as a modern folk legend born of Cold War anxiety, the story endures as a magnificent monument to our eternal obsession with the unknown, reminding us to always look closer at the sky, and to listen for the whispers hidden within the desert wind. Before you go, here's the thing. Every week we investigate another mystery the world could never solve. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And here's the most important part. The next case we investigate could be yours. Tell us in the comments which unsolved mystery, disappearance, or disaster we should cover next. We read every suggestion, and the stories that stay with you are the ones we bring to life.